Well, I think first of all, the pool is growing. Even since the pandemic, we have 100,000 more women in the workforce. That's the first thing. There is the issue of work-life balance. There is the issue of the cost and availability of childcare. There is the issue of amenities after school. But it is changing. They need, from my experience, I'd say, above all, invest in financial knowledge. I do think that many women find it more difficult to get funding than others. I think continuous education, I think mentoring is extremely important for them. As I do that they should work effectively with other women. Networking is hugely important. They have to believe in themselves.
Breege, it's wonderful to have you here today.
My pleasure.
You were at the gym at 6:30 this morning, you tell me.
Oh, yes, indeed. It's a normal routine.
That's wonderful.
To do a class.
Yeah.
I had some spinning and, did some work on the machines and the swimming pool, and then went into my ice bath for 4 minutes.
Oh, and so I couldn't do the ice bath. I could definitely get up and exercise in the morning time. But I'm currently reading a book called Outlive by a Dr. Peter Attia, and he speaks all about the importance of exercise and diet as we get older, and we shouldn't just fall into this trap of, becoming sedentary and not moving. But clearly, if you're getting up at 6:30 in the morning to do a spinning class, you're in the other category.
No, I think it's very useful. It's good for the health, obviously. It's good for morale. It's good for feeling good factor. Yeah. And I do think it's about longevity as well.
100%, and great for the brain too. So you are well known as the matriarch of Primark, but before we get into all that, I'd love to know a little bit about your childhood and your, what kind of a child were you, and how did you get into the fashion business?
Okay, well, I was born on the borders of Clare and Galway many years ago, and my first memory are the blizzards of 1947, January, when I was not yet 4 years old. Home was a farm, and it was really idyllic. My parents were informed by the national struggle and born on both sides of the treaty. So at home, in terms of farm, I helped to milk the cows, save the hay, milk my goats before I went to school, snare the rabbits, brought water from the well, and walked the 2 miles to school through the fields. To the 2-room school, we brought the sods of turf, and my mother, with other mothers, did the flowers, both in the church and in the school. My Mercedes was Paddy. He was a horse with bells and bows and plaits, and with a gleaming trap. He took us to Mass on Sundays or to the seaside.
Wow, okay. And what kind of student were you? Were you a very diligent student? Did you enjoy school?
I very much enjoyed school. Very much enjoyed great respect for the teachers. They were enlightened. When I was just over 13, I had to go away to the nearest town to live because there were no transport links, and my parents believed in giving us the best education possible. So I went to live there and with the Sisters of Mercy in Gort, County Galway. They were just excellent in terms of advice, in terms of support. They did, there was no career guidance at that time. So they did try to enlist me and get me in to join them. But my siblings and my colleagues would say that the children had a lucky escape.
Okay. So that wasn't for you.
No.
So did you get into the fashion business then by working straight off the bat when you left school?
No. I went into hospitality, and I spent 17 years in hospitality, 3 of which I spent in Switzerland and Germany. And that gave me a great love of culture, diversity and language. And that was really important to me. Came back to Ireland and worked with the Great Southern Hotels Group, North and South, and did many there, from being a deputy manager and running one of the hotels to being an accountant for 5 hotels, running a training school. And at later stage, in the late 70s, Arthur Ryan, my late friend from Penneys, invited me to join Penneys Primark, as it was then. And that very much appealed to me. Although I loved the hospitality business and I was like a piece of the furniture, it appealed to me because, you know, they were developing a business in the UK, and he saw his business very much outside Ireland, Ireland being a small place. So I joined there on the day of, you know, the Pope's visit to Ireland in October 1979, and had 37 years of glorious, absolutely wonderful life, wonderful fulfillment, wonderful career, worked with the best people, and I would consider myself that I was very fortunate and I was in the right place at the right time.
You got into the HR end of things first, did you? Is
Yes,
that right?
my first job I had, because I was running the HR function, among other things, in the Great Southern Hotels Group, was to set up the HR department.
Okay.
As there wasn't any HR department. At that stage, there were just 24 stores. Now there are well over 400 stores in 16 countries. So I was really setting up the HR department, looking outwards, and there were great challenges in the 70s. I mean, going into the UK for us was a huge challenge. We weren't really known. There was a lot of competition there, as there wasn't in Ireland. So there were many mistakes, and maybe I'd better to say we used to call them mistakes. We call them learnings.
I know, yeah, that's what we're supposed to say, aren't we?
Yeah.
But it is very true. You know, every mistake that you make in business, you learn from it, and you certainly don't do it again, especially if you lose money. Isn't that right?
Try not to, yeah.
I know. So what was it like trying to get into the UK as an Irish company?
Well, we were there. We had small stores. We were very fortunate to have an excellent parent. It was really about, you know, learning the business. It was about understanding what our business model was understanding what the competition was, understanding how we could give value for money, and how we could succeed in a country that had very large and potential markets for Primark.
Okay, and you've since grown into other countries.
Yeah.
And how do you think Primark did that well? As in, how did they get to the stage that they were? Was it, you two talk a lot about the people that you work with, and they are the nub of the business. So how do you bring them along with you?
Well, I think firstly we had excellent people. We also hired people that were better than ourselves and knew that they would teach us what to do. When we went into Spain, you know, we knew we wanted to have a Spanish business. We didn't want to have an Irish business. We talked to the people on the ground, whether they were the politicians, the mayors, the authorities, the schools, the fashion colleges, and sometimes the competition, to explain what our business model was, to explain to them what we were about to do, and to find support. And found also in each of those many countries in Europe and the US, the ambassadors, the Irish ambassadors in place, were hugely supportive of Penneys Primark and supportive of us and in what we were trying to do.
I read somewhere that when you went into a country, you'd send people from Ireland or the UK into the country for a couple of weeks beforehand, just to...
Oh, Ireland was Ireland, you know, was hugely important in that sphere, because we had very well-trained people in Ireland. We had little well-educated. We had little churn, little turnover, and they were thrilled with new opportunities. Some young people in Ireland who were, you know, sales assistants, both men and women, are now running some of the big stores in Europe.
Okay.
They've gone to live in Europe. They've brought their family. They've learned the language. They've learned the culture, and it has been a hugely wonderful experience for many of them. But it's always, in terms of going in for a couple of weeks, it was much more than that.
Was it okay?
It would be more like people would go for 6 months. People would go for a month. People would go for a year, a couple of years. And then, of course, if somebody went for 6 months, oh, yes, I'd like to bring my family here. I'd like to bring my children. I like the system. I like the education. I like the health system. I like the lifestyle. So that was really very important in establishing for us the DNA of the business and really what we were about. But at the same time, emphasising that we didn't necessarily want to build an Irish business. We were going to benefit from having an Irish business and also from the very good things of the UK business in the early years. And of course, we continue to expand in the UK as well, taking over various companies. There were 7 blue chip brands in the UK. None of them are there now. And some of them we took over in part or in whole.
Okay.
And that gave us a huge strength as well, and gave us a strength in terms of bringing people into the company who had previous retail experience.
And they were other fashion retailers?
Absolutely,
that you, okay.
yeah. 7 fashion brands.
Can you give me the names?
Oh, I think I'll just leave that to the listener's imagination.
Okay, wonderful.
Wouldn't be very hard to find out.
I'm sure it would. A simple Google. So when you sent people into a country to learn the culture of the country, so that you could actually go in and become, like what you said, the Primark, the Spanish Primark, as opposed to Irish Primark going to Spain. Is that right? It was very important.
Well, first of all, they had retail experience. Mm-hmm. They knew product. They knew the DNA of Primark. They understood, the merchandise, and they were committed to the best value on the high street. So their job then was to work alongside the local people, to teach them in the ways of how Primark ran its stores and what the business model was. So that may be managers, supervisors, sales assistants. For lengthy periods of time. Okay. And many of them will have stayed abroad or wanted to stay abroad for the reasons that I've said.
Yeah. And when you lived abroad yourself, did you learn French? I read that you gave a speech in French and in English there not so long ago. Did you speak the language of the country that you were living in as well, or try to pick it up?
Well, I learned French and I learned German, but each of the countries that we did business with, that I would always have a knowledge of the local language, so I could deliver the opening address in the language of the country, whether it was Spanish or French or German or Portuguese. I think that was really important, because that's about understanding the people, respecting the people.
Yeah.
And, that's highly regarded. And as such, also, a lot of our young people would have been learning Spanish and French before we went to the market, and German. And, we had teachers from Trinity College who would be in Primark House in the morning for those who would wish to learn that language. They may not be going abroad, but at least for banter or conversation on the email. So it was really building a team, and there was fantastic atmosphere. And, when I do recall when a past Taoiseach opened one of our stores in Berlin, he said this was like a pop concert. I wish I could have it at the Ardèche.
Very good. Can I ask you how you found being a woman in business? Because what year was it when you started in Primark? It was in the 1970s.
79.
So as a woman working her way up the ladder, did you find it difficult? Was it mainly male dominated and you had to, No,
I didn't.
Okay.
I think I was very fortunate to be part of a small team. And while I joined in late 79, I became a member of the board some years later. And I think that was when we were a small board of 5 people. So I really did not find any disadvantage. I think also we were so busy. There was no time for disadvantage. Get on and doing the job. I think I'd say over my lifetime, I haven't, I have experience, for example, place I couldn't go because I was a woman, or maybe it was because I wasn't a man. Okay. But other than that, I did not. I know today might be slightly different, and also like then, like now, there are still few women in business.
Yeah.
Other things being equal, but we will be many.
Yes, I think so. And do you have any idea why there aren't as many women in business as men?
Well, I think first of all, the pool is growing. Even since the pandemic, we have 100,000 more women in the workforce. Mm-hmm. There are challenges for women in business. That's the first thing. There is the issue of work-life balance. There is the issue of the cost and availability of childcare. There is the issue of amenities after school. There is also, I suppose, the issue of tradition, but it is changing. And for women to be in business, they need to have an audacious goal. They need to manage the minds. They manage their mindset. They need to be tenacious. They need to be resilient. They need, from my experience, I'd say, above all, invest in financial knowledge. I do think that many women find it more difficult to get funding than others. I think continuous education, I think mentoring is extremely important for them. As I do that they should work effectively with other women. They should coach their staff. Networking is hugely important. They have to believe in themselves. They have to value what they do and not feel they are in any way inferior. I think the opportunities are huge out there, but there are also challenges which have to be dealt with by government and by society in order to ensure that we're maximising the skills and the skills potential for the growth and success of the economy ongoing.
Yeah, I agree with you completely there. You are a part of, I know you stepped away this year, but you've promised them to go back, of the Going for Growth programme.
Yes.
That is run by Enterprise Ireland, or who
and
runs
KPMG.
that? Yeah. And that specifically focuses on female entrepreneurs,
Yes.
doesn't it?
Yes, I had a number of groups, wonderful women, some of them now household names. And it was really just amazing. When they met, first of all, we had the opportunity to chose the group that we would lead. And I chose to make sure we didn't have competitors in the smallish group of 8 people. They wouldn't have maybe known each other. They wouldn't have been as good at sharing initially. But towards the end of the programme, it was truly amazing in terms how excellent they were at sharing of information, competitive information, how excellent they were in supporting each other through the various WhatsApp group, how eager they were to learn, how eager they were to continue to invest in their own education. Truly amazing. My job was to lead them, and really the whole success of that were the women who were attending. And I cannot say that in any one of them was there anything different, but just wanted to contribute, wanted to develop, wanted to run their own business successfully. They had small businesses generally, lots of challenges, funding being one, scaling up being another, and dealing with the people and culture issues, because clearly they didn't have that much experience. But I found Enterprise Ireland and Paula Fitzsimons, who runs the programme, wonderful, because I'd say to Paula, we have gaps here in knowledge. I'd like if we could arrange a specific workshop to deal with this particular issue. And there Paula was always responding. Yeah. And it was mostly about the financials and the cash flow and how to scale up. And workshops in terms of HR issues, how you deal with them, how you nip them in the bud, how you recruit the best people, how you value the people that are working for you, because they are the single most important asset.
And actually, Breege, on that, how do you value the people that work for you? How do you show them? You know, because there's ways to show them. You can incentivize them with bonuses and you can pay, but that can only work so much. How do you show people?
You treat them properly.
Yeah.
You give them opportunities to grow. You empower them. You support them when they're ill. You're concerned always about your workforce, health and well-being now being top of the list. And I think we've all witnessed some of that since the pandemic. You build a team. You build from the bottom up. You involve them in the business. And I think it's common sense may not be very common, but it's very simple in terms of doing these kind of things and respecting what they do and showing them dignity. And I think in one of the success stories of Primark was all these excellent young people in Ireland and to a lesser and in Great Britain who really were given the opportunity to help Primark to build a business. They were empowered. They had lots of ability. It was a question of getting them out of their shell. Of course, continuous education is very important. Having coaches for the senior people is also extremely important.
Yeah, so everyone coaching each other, and then the coaches
absolutely.
And then I often hear from other people that are running a business that a business can only go so well, and then you have to scale up. But that's the most daunting thing. It's finding that. Is trying to scale up. And, you know, how do people go about even, getting the right information about how to do that?
Well, you need a strategy.
Yeah.
You may need some help to put that in place. Then you need a plan, Because if you don't know where you're going, any road will bring you.
Yeah,
So
okay.
having had a plan, have you got the skills, and have you got the tools, and you got the timelines correct to do that? And I have seen many women who've done that successfully in a planned and mature way with support from others. And also, men are often the best supporters of women. And men can do a lot and are doing a lot by encouraging and supporting women in business. Men know, research will tell us that having a balanced workforce, having in terms of having gender and diversity on the agenda is really important, and the productivity levels are higher.
Absolutely. And what advice would you have for a woman that's starting out in business today, or is thinking about starting out in business but still can't make that leap? If you'd one bit of advice for them, what would you say?
I'd say have a goal, have an audacious goal.
I love that audacious goal, not just any old goal. Make it wild.
Know where you want to go. Have that clear mindset of what I want to achieve. Invest in yourself. Continuous education is important, and that doesn't mean being at university every day. That continuous education, other kind of short programs, keeping up to date, reading the journals, having work with other effective, good women. Be prepared to hire people that are better than yourself. Be prepared to spend money, invest in your staff, be prepared to, in terms of coaching your staff, training, development, hugely important. And most of all, involve the people in your business. They can help you more than anything possible. And don't be afraid. You have skills, you have potential, you have knowledge, and you choose this to do a good job, be fulfilled, and at the end of the week say, I have delivered that, and have the same attitude towards your workforce.
Okay, and obviously we'll go back to Primark now. You deal with women in other countries that are in those other countries making clothes and building their own businesses as a result of that. So I suppose one question I'd like to ask is, how does Penneys or Primark make their clothes so cheaply?
Yeah. First of all, we buy in large quantities and we buy in bulk. We buy well in advance. We invest in large factories. Good suppliers can't make poor merchandise. These large factories have the skills, they've got the tools, they've got the equipment, they've got the people. And I recall sitting down in China with a woman entrepreneur who had a factory and asking her how was business with Primark. And she said, well, I've been doing business for 25 years. And my business is like a 100-room hotel. 60% of that is every year for Primark. I know Primark. I don't know what I will be making, but I do know they're going to take up that production. And that allows me to go out and sell my other 40%. The 60% pays for all my utilities. It pays my rent. It pays my staff, etc. And I know, for example, that if I have lean periods, I will have availability from Primark to make merchandise for Primark at these low periods. So that is one of the things. The other thing is very little money, if any, is spent on marketing. That is done by word of mouth. Primark has excellent suppliers and an excellent supply chain. The suppliers are bound by a code of conduct, which is of international standards, and the suppliers have to adhere to that contract in great detail, and that's about the wages they pay. That's about the conditions they offer in terms of overtime, etc. That's about the benefits. That is also about their training, about their development, and Primark supports a lot of factories in doing so. These are some of the things. That's a reason that Primark can sell its clothes at good value. And Primark is best value on the high street. It's one of its values. And I can say my dress is probably, that I'm wearing today, is at least 10 years old. It's in the washing machine every summer, and I know it costs less than €25. I also know that I can wear this with great pride and know that it wasn't made at the expense of workers in the supply chain. And let me add to that. I'd say last year there were well over 3,000 audits in the factories that make clothes for Primark. Primark has more than 130 experts on the ground in each of those sourcing locations. And they visit the factories independently to ensure that the code of conduct is abided by. Primark contributes majorly in each of the communities and has a global partnership with UNICEF, doing a lot of work over a number of years. And it does support the communities, including, wherever we've stores, Primark supports the communities. So that's a little bit about the business model. And of course the margin is tight.
And you don't do online, and is there a reason for that?
Well, there is a pilot at the moment, 25 stores in the north of England in Children's Way. We have very beautiful stores. And the object of the exercise is to get the customers to browse and to go to the stores where there's a lovely environment. And depending on which store you're in, there'll be lots of space, places to sit, to charge your phone, to have water. Some of the stores, if I take a Birmingham store, it has three eateries within the store. It has the first Disney cafe outside their own premises. It has a laboratory where you can have your T-shirt printed. It has a wonderful, for the women, for your hair, for your nails, for your threading.
Oh my goodness.
In terms of everything you can do. So that's, the value retailer. It's about also many of the stores will use local artists to portray what in Spain, in Madrid, it will be very typical of what the Spanish will do, and so they'll use several artists within the store. So that's what I should say as well, that you can browse. All the product is online. There's over 20 million followers on social media. So the intention is obviously to get people to come to browse the online and then go in and look at the stores and purchase.
Do you think, though, it's difficult for bricks and mortar retailers in this day and age when it's so easy for people to just buy online at the click? And now, with companies, I suppose, delivering out fast and then you can return fast. Is it difficult for bricks and mortar companies to stay going in the current climate, do you think?
I think it's a balance.
Yeah.
If I want to buy this dress, I want to feel it. I want to see what the fabric is like. I want really to try it on. I'm not necessarily going to do that online. I want the experience, the environment. I want to go and have my coffee. I want to go and meet with friends. So I think it's, it is a balance. Clearly online serves a purpose. But obviously for anyone in business, one has to be profitable.
Okay, yes, absolutely. And it can be difficult as well, I suppose, if people are returning things that, and people want long-term return dates as well. So if they buy something and they can return it within 28 days, by the time it gets back into store or, gets back to the warehouse, gets turned around again, it could be out of season even. So I suppose there's a lot to online shopping, isn't there?
I believe bricks and mortars will always be there.
Okay.
But you have to invest. You have to keep current. You have to update the environment of the store. You have to make it an attractive place. You have to use, customer insights. You have to understand what the customer journey is. And with the addition of technologies, that's very commonplace at the moment.
What are your standout moments in business? Do you have one standout moment? Or?
Well, I think, I had a dream. And that dream was realised on the 10th of September 2015. And that was when we opened the first store in America.
Okay.
In Downtown Crossing, which was the original Filene's store. It was the headquarters of the Filene's chain. This very beautiful building, front preserved, was built in 1911 it was really you could say a masterpiece of the architect, and the style was of Beaux-Arts. So here we had done many years, particularly 2 long years of research, and we invested heavily in the US, because the US is a patchwork of markets. So we had decided to go into the Northeast because it had a high proportion of the population. We decided that we would invest in 10 stores in different states, because each of the states may have different arrangements in terms of how one does business. So here was the first very beautiful store, David Burnham's masterpiece of 1911, and here we are with Mayor Marty Walsh cutting the tape and a huge audience. That was really a very proud moment.
Okay. Yeah.
For us and for all the people, they were representative from all the countries we trade in. It was a very big day, a very proud moment. And now, of course, clearly successful with the intention to roll out 60 stores across the US.
So you currently have how many?
Prox 15.
Okay,
yeah,
and to
we're
roll
rolling
out
out to 60. Yeah.
So Primark has been taken well by the American public.
Oh
has
yes,
it?
they love the merchandise. It's best value. Again, it really is a value for money. There were lots of learnings there.
Yeah.
Because of the different culture, different marketplace. And also, we had many, again, an American business. We had many Americans that we had come to Europe for several weeks in their induction to learn, to understand the Primark DNA. That was one standout moment. Another standout moment, like other countries, I, with others, a team, did a lot of work in France. It was... People would say this is the home of the fashion industry, where Primark is hugely successful. And I received the Chevalier Légion d'Honneur presented on behalf of President Hollande. And that was a proud moment, of course, in accepting that. I accepted it for the team, because for the people who worked and brought the brand, all together brought the brand to France.
And do you supply different... different fashion for different countries, or is it all the same across the board?
Well, first of all, generally, there will be little differences, because the Dutch women are taller. You have to think about the length of the jeans, maybe.
Okay.
In Gran Canaria, that's a different model. That's different than Madrid and Spain, but most will be common.
Okay.
There may be seasonal colours. The Spanish love their neutrals and their beiges, etc., while another country might like its bling bling. So it's a question of tailoring that, at which the buyers are expert. The buyers travel the world, and they look at what's happening. They understand the different countries. They are in these countries. They know what the people are wearing. They know what the consumers are looking for. They are at the festivals, wherever they might be.
That sounds like a great job. I want to come work for. Get to go to
the
festivals.
They're at the nightclubs. They're walking the streets.
Okay, so that's what they do. They go and they look and see what
absolutely. Now they have, of course, the help of technologies. Yeah. They have the help of designers, merchandisers, financial people to support them. But there will be differences, insofar as you may be selling T-shirts all year round in Gran Canaria. They might be your biggest seller, while they may not necessarily be that in Germany or in the north of Germany. So there are differences, but there are a lot of commonalities.
Okay. Oh goodness, I forgot what I was going to say to you there. It was to do with what we were talking about with the commonalities with different countries. Oh yes, sorry, the cotton project that you have in India. Oh, can you tell me a little bit about that?
That's a lovely project. It started in 2011 in Gujarat, which is a very large state. And the idea was to work with agricultural experts and Women's Employed Association. And Primark use a lot of cotton. So it was a question of making cotton more sustainable. So 1,151 women farmers were chosen. So there was a program which they followed on and off the job in learning how to produce cotton sustainably. And these 1,150, firstly, the men were not too keen.
Oh, were they not?
No. And then I recall when I visited this project, it was a 3-year project, 2.5 years later, and I sat down in 45 degrees heat. I was well prepared in dress, where these women, they'd milked the buffaloes, they'd put the children to school, they'd worked for 8 hours in the field and came home and did the same thing again. So I said to them, in groups of maybe 12, tell me about what was the benefits of the programme. And I should say at this stage, of course, there was less pesticides being used, less fertiliser, less water, and the profits had increased over 240%. So the women said to me, if I take the many groups, if I put it together, and say in general, they will have said, I bought a tractor, I bought an acre of land, I bought some irrigation equipment, but most of all, 95% was for the education of my children.
Yeah.
The men were very much in favour of that visit, and they came along with some of the women. And I remember this gentleman saying to me, Breege, because this is a dry state, I bought a motorcycle. Now, by the end of this year, there'll have been 275,000 people trained in that programme in India and other countries. So the women farmers have clearly benefit in terms of real, and also benefit in education in terms of empowerment. I know one of these women I met was supervising 100 women farmers. So there was growth potential. There was a lot going on for them. So a wonderful programme, contributing to the community, contributing to the consumer, and contributing to Primark. Very close to my heart.
And then the men then get on board because they see the benefits of it for themselves and their own children then too. It's about bringing them along, like you said earlier, about bringing the men along with them as well.
Absolutely.
India is a different society.
It's really about supporting communities, and it's about particularly in the developing world in terms of education and training. And that goes on all the time in the factories.
And is there anything about your career or your business or anything like that you would change that wasn't so fun, that didn't, that stands out as something that wasn't an amazing time?
No, I just look back on it with great love, affection and fulfillment, and said I was very fortunate to being able to work with the people I did, to work in so many countries, to have had, and to step away from the day job when I was 73 years of age. And I did continue to have an involvement in Primark. So I look back and just say, oh, wouldn't I love to do that all over again?
Really, isn't that a lovely thing to be able to say?
Well, that's how I really feel.
It's wonderful. And even to have worked up until 73, but you're not even finished. You're on a number of boards, aren't you?
Yes,
What are you doing nowadays? Can you tell us your secrets?
I chair 3 boards.
Okay.
One is a construction company. One is a data analytics company. Another is the implementation of human rights in the Department of Foreign Affairs, where there are a vast number of organisations. I sit on a retail board. I sit on the board of Hillsborough Castle. I sit on the board of Kylemore Abbey, and I chair the foundation there. I sit on the outside appointments board for the government. I'm a member of the President's Foundation Committee at TU Dublin. I sit in the advisory board of the Smurfit Business School, and a few things like that,
Oh my goodness, do you have any downtime?
And I sit on the pensions board for Primark. Oh yes, I have downtime, and I think that's really important. I think I go to the gym, as I say, I keep health. I go cycling. I read, in the recent times I've been quite interested. I've read Red Notice, all about Russia. I've read Red Roulette, all about China. I've read about the big sister, the little sister, and the red sister, also about China. I've read for the second time what the crawdads sing.
Oh, yeah.
So I read that. I play bridge to keep the mind alive.
Isn't it so important?
We're part of a wine club, part of a book club. So that keep hobbies are quite important. Are quite important as well. Of course, I have family. I have so many. I was really fortunate to have a wonderful family. My late husband and 10, now 9 stepchildren, and we're wonderfully close. And they are in a number of them in Ireland and 5 of them outside Ireland.
Okay. Can I ask you what is the difference between chairing a board and sitting on a board? Because some people might not know what the difference of that is.
I think chairing a board is really important in terms of governance. Now, clearly, all are important for governance, but in terms of it's ensuring the standards of governance are fully complied with. It's ensuring that the chair is responsible for the agenda, is responsible for managing the meeting, is responsible for ensuring that others make their full contribution, is responsible for ensuring the performance of the board, is responsible to ensure that there's independence performance carried out at least every 3 years, and that there's an internal review of the board at least every year, is responsible for ensuring you have the appropriate committees, whether that's remuneration, nominations, audit and risk. So it is a very responsible role. Each board member has their responsibility as well, because it's a collective responsibility at the end of the day.
Okay. And did you talk about further education, and it's not necessarily sitting in a university, but you must have done business courses over the years.
I did. Well, I when I finished my secondary school, I'd have liked to go on to university, but it wasn't economically possible. It was a matter of means, but I had the aspiration to do so. So I was a night student at UCD.
Okay.
And I graduated in commerce, UCD, and indeed I had recently anniversary of my 50-year anniversary of graduation, at which they asked me to speak at UCD. At about 6 years ago, I decided to do the Chartered Directors Programme, and I enjoy that. I thought that was a very good programme, and I have many others that I work with who are doing that programme now. But over the years, I was fortunate to attend very short courses at Cornell University, because that was hospitality, Harvard Business School, London School of Economics, and others. So it was really a question of continuous education, and that's one of the things that I think is hugely important for all people in business, and especially for women.
Yeah. And can I ask you, when you were back working in the throes of Primark, were you able to have that work-life balance that people talk about, or were you working all hours of the day and find it difficult to get the exercise in or eat well, or did you actually consciously?
It was a bit more of the latter, because we travelled continuously.
Okay.
We were rolling out a business across Europe and in America. And that's just not about opening the store. That's about the years of preparation that go in advance. Whether that's about, every aspect of the business model, from the property right through to the day that you cut the tape. So it was more difficult, and I was very fortunate that I had a wonderful, supportive husband who was with me all the way in whatever I required to do.
That is very important to have that support, isn't it?
Absolutely, I think it's key.
And you say that you have a lovely relationship with your stepchildren too.
Oh yes, they're wonderful. They're absolutely amazing, and they're so that's very precious for me, and I consider myself most fortunate in that regard. So it's it's birthdays, it's communions, it's baptisms, it's engagement, it's weddings.
So many of them, I say, when you have a family that big.
Yeah, wonderful.
You told me before we came in here that you fast once a year at Christmas time.
I do. I've been doing this for, I think, it's a clinic in the south of Spain, Buchinger Wilhelmi Clinic, and I go there. Generally, I have all my family chores, since my husband is no longer with me. Family chores completed before Christmas. So I normally go there on Christmas Eve, and it's a 10-day fast program. It's the least amount of time you can do on fast. So,
Okay.
But it's a rigid fasting program. It's most enjoyable, where, it's, you have your first day is a fruit day. And then you can have anything you like for breakfast, provided it's water, and you may have a half bowl of soup at lunchtime, and you have an orange juice in the evening, and that goes on for 7 days. And it's just, now there's lots of activities to keep you busy. You're on the beach at 7:30 in the morning, or maybe earlier, and lots of activities of every shape and manner of exercise. Obviously it has to be done in consultation with the medical, and they're a very good medical team. And I really enjoyed it, and I come away feeling really good. People go there who are recovering from cancer. People go who want to chill out. People go who want to lose weight. And people like me go for, this is something, renewal. I come away and, my eyes are bright, I'm shining, I feel really, really good. You know, and I feel I'm ready for another year. But it's very good program. It originally started with Dr. Buckingham, and he had very bad arthritis. It's about 100 years ago.
Okay.
And he knew if he fasted would help. He fasted for 3 weeks. He nearly died.
Okay.
But he did recover. His arthritis was gone.
Okay.
And he spent the rest of his life, as they still do now, in terms of research into the benefits of fasting. Some people fast. The more common one is 3 weeks. Now, you can also go there if you don't want to fast at all. You know, and not everybody fasts. You can go there for 600 calorie diet, 800, whatever you really want.
Mm-hmm.
And there are 2 clinics, one in Germany, in Ubelingen, and the other is in south of Spain. But I highly recommend it. You know, and it's not difficult when you're doing it. First time, perhaps.
Okay. And
the atmosphere is excellent.
Okay.
And the quality of the therapists and the quality of the people. It's just really a kind of a special environment. Very nice, very pleasant, and very lovely people who go there. You meet some people who've gone for 40 years. I think, I know my last visit was my 49th.
Oh my goodness, so you've been doing it a long time. Wow.
Now, not all of those, there'll be some that weren't, well, not all of those were fasting, yeah, but
okay.
They told me the last one was my 49th, because the next time I come, we'll have a big gift for you.
And then for the rest of the year, do you do intermittent fasting, or do you just try and eat as healthily as you can?
Well, I eat healthily.
Okay.
But if I really want to do intermittent fasting, I'd say, well, I do either of 2 things. One, I'd say I'd have a fruit day 1 day a week. Alternatively, I would just not eat later than 7 p.m. and not have breakfast early in the morning.
Okay. And you're very healthy, and you've so much energy, you know. So I know you have a sore knee at the minute because you
torn meniscus in the gym.
Goodness. Yeah. Imagine tearing your meniscus in the gym at the
but it
in your
worse.
70s. It could be. It's wonderful.
I think the aging process has something to do with it as well. But I'm getting by.
Are you getting some physio on it as well? Then,
yes, I've done lots of things.
Okay.
Yeah.
So important, isn't it?
I know, but it'll pass.
Out of all the countries that you visited, apart from Ireland, which is your most favourite?
Switzerland.
Switzerland. Okay. Why?
I think, well, first of all, I was working there at a young and impressionable age. The Swiss were extremely kind to me. You know, this was a little girl from the west of Ireland who didn't know very much.
With the flaming red hair.
So they were very kind. I loved the culture and the diversity. I loved the cottage-based industry in terms of how good they were at the cottage-based industry. And I often use that in terms of, you know, what could be done in rural Ireland. Their making of their cheese and all the belief they had in their agriculture, in their culture, the belief they had in themselves. They were even at that stage conscious of waste of food. And of course, beautiful scenery, mountains, snow, sunshine. So it holds a very special place in my heart.
Yeah, that sounds lovely. I've only been to Switzerland to go to Geneva, to fly into Geneva to go skiing in France.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that sounds very special to you.
It's very, very special place, very special people. You know, that's very special.
And when you mentioned about the cottage industry and how Ireland could maybe learn from that, particularly with the west of Ireland, I think sometimes in Ireland we are missing a trick with all the natural resources that we have here in terms of even marketing ourselves, aren't we? Well,
I'm part of a RISE Foundation, which is founded by David McCourt, the chairman of National Broadband Ireland. And what he's doing through this foundation is where broadband is laid in the rural areas. What can it bring to the rural areas that the government isn't doing? For example, it might be, and which is quite common, literacy in terms of the IT function, particularly for people, elders, you know, people who may not have had that opportunity. It may well be there may not be a community centre. How do we have a community centre? If we haven't got beautiful flowers in the area, how can you arrange that that's done? And they have a process of awards where in each of the local area, somebody, you know, there will take an initiative and they'll be eligible for an award. So it's a very good programme in if you like, in connected with the national broadband, and I think it's capable of delivering a lot. Whether that might be, having little plots of land for children to learn how to garden, to learn how to grow wilding. There are all these ideas that the Rise Foundation, and I know it's only the week before last that I spent 2.5 days down in Valencia with and very, very beautiful weather. And we were in the company of a couple of Americans, and they just could not understand that global communications began in Valencia in 1858 in Newfoundland. They just couldn't believe, they weren't aware of that, but couldn't believe that this had happened so many years ago, and that it took them 9 years to finish the project. And each time it got broken, they started again. And with the biggest boat there was in the world, it meant that they had 3,000 tons of cable in their boat. So anyway, that goes back to the Rise Foundation and its potential in conjunction with broadband, whether it could be in food, it could be in, literacy, it could be in so many things, it could be in card playing, as well, to keep community, to create local jobs, to keep a community there, and things that aren't already done by the government.
Yeah, and keep young people in the
Absolutely.
community.
I learned in Valencia, where broadband will be going to, that they have a number of people working from home. They would have a lot more if they had accommodation.
Well, yeah.
And people working from home now because of remote working in the facilities. So people had spoke to some of them who absolutely love the lifestyle. And they can work as effectively in, these particular we're talking to, in their jobs as they could offshore.
Yeah, no, it's so important, isn't it, to kind of keep that locality.
But what they told us, and it was holding them back, was the lack of accommodation, because they had requests from many more people to move to the island.
So they need to start building, do they?
Well, it's a question of, it's an issue, like housing is an issue.
Yeah, absolutely. Breege, I ask every podcast guest 2 questions at the very end of our podcast. And the first one is, what advice would you give young people today?
I'd ask them to show courage, initiative, respect and value differences, be ethically aware. I would ask them, I suppose I'd take the motto from G.B. Shaw and ask them to follow that, which says, the harder I work, the longer I live. Life is no brief space to me. It's like a candle that I've got hold of for the moment, that is shining, and I want to pass it on to the next generation.
Wow, that's lovely. And what is the meaning of life?
The meaning of life is different, I guess, for people throughout the years. Maybe different for genders, it may be different through the age groups. But for me now, it's about health and well-being. It's about family, friends, colleagues, community. It's about giving back to society. It's about mentoring. We talked about young women in business, which I enjoy very much. It is about having freedom and independence. It is about hobbies. It is about education, continuous education. For me, encouraging others in that way, providing some words of counsel, I would hope. It's about spirituality. So when I get up to the pearly gates, I hope I'm going to be invited in, and he's going to say, "You've lived a good life, mostly."
I'm sure he will. Breege, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I've learned loads from this little conversation, and I'm sure everyone else who's listening has too. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.